We are live.
Call to order the January 7th, 2026 Intergovernmental Relations Committee for the City of Eugene. My name is Randy Groves, and I am currently the chair of the committee, although we will probably have a new chair here shortly since we're in a new year. So calling the meeting to order, agenda review and minutes review. Why don't we start with minutes? Has everybody had a chance to review the December 3rd, 2025 meeting minutes from our last meeting?
Yes.
If so, is there a motion to accept, or are there let me start with, are there changes to the minutes? I'm not seeing any. Is there a motion to accept?
I move to approve the minutes from December 5th meeting.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been moved by Councilor Evans and the motion seconded by Councilor Ye. All in favor, say aye.
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 It passes unanimously. Are there any changes to the agenda? Not seeing any from the councilors. Ethan, any changes to the agenda? Okay, we're on to agenda item number 3, discuss 2026 legislative session. Ethan.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. So for record, Ethan Nelson, I'm the city's intergovernmental relations manager. And today I have Brooke Freed, the chief of staff for the city manager and mayor and council support. And she's going to be with me because we have an upcoming work session. And so this is number 3A, prepare for upcoming city council work session on IGR priorities. I will be out on medical leave during that period when it's being scheduled on January 26th, the work session. And so Brooke's been kind enough to fill in as my proxy. And so she wanted to join today so that we can walk through and talk about the work session and be able to answer any questions, but also just prepare the committee so that you have a sense of how we'll approach the. So, and then the second part, 3B, will get on into an update on some of the other priority items that are being discussed and will be part of the short session that starts on February 2nd. So back to 3A, as you may remember, these work sessions where we bring the IGR priorities to council have become pretty pro forma over the past few years. We've got our process down that we worked with the committee on to adopt the priorities document, and then the policies document, which you adopted at the December meeting, and to move forward on into January meeting to discuss with council. And so we'll introduce that to council. We'll talk about high level goals for the IGR program, which are similar to what they've always been in terms of relations and maximizing leadership roles of our state delegation and also opportunities at the federal level. And then walk through the IGR adopted priorities and answer any questions related to those. And then additionally talk about the policies document, any questions on that, and then there will be an opportunity for discussion, a brief touch on the United Front dates, which are in late April, and some of our kind of top line priorities, which are economic development, airport, and potentially housing, depending upon where the federal government is at that point in time. And then, discussion, but then at the end, it will be a council action if there will be proposed motions to approve or take alternative action for those documents. And once those documents are approved by council, then they become the city's kind of the formal policy positions for the city that then myself and Zach Beach, our contract lobbyist, will then be implemented during the short sessions. Brooke will be presenting and walking through that. And so one of the things that, and Zach Reeves will also be available. But one of the things that we were hoping is that if there's items, and we can maybe as we get into 3B, we'll talk about those. If there's items that counselors, that IGR committee members have questions about or would like to be able to weigh in with your colleagues, full council, I think this would be an opportunity for us to have these discussions today, because that way, if Brooke is fielding questions that, usually I'll pull out my experience in my brain, but if you all are able to say, oh yeah, we've got that one, and to respond in that more of that discussion process, then there is that opportunity. And so that's this item. Brooke, do you have anything to add, or you want to share?
I was just going to verify whether you plan to attend that session virtually on the 26th or
Probably not.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay. Any questions from the IGR? Okay. Well, we'll move on then to item 3B, draft 2026 priority 1 bill report.
And so that's the memorandum dated January 7th, and it says 2026 legislative priority 1 pre-session draft report. So we walked through an earlier version of this at the last meeting, and I made some updates, and I still am going through this. These are things that will likely come on up. So under the Eugene priorities, and I have these as proposed Eugene priorities because I'll change that once it becomes adopted by council, if council adopts those as the priorities. Protect OHCS shelter program funding. There's been no change to that. It's still, even as the budgets continue to, the budget gap at the state level continues to shift. OHCS is not put up as part of a 5% or even the smaller 2.5% budget reduction scenarios to the legislature. Has not put forward the shelter program as part of those. So that's a good thing. Second part, second bullet, protect $6 million in Clear Lake Road infrastructure funding. Again, currently there's no discussions to trim the allocation for 2027 bond, lottery bond sales. And so at this point, we feel that the full amount of all of the projects that were approved during the 2025 session will move forward. And additionally, there's a new conversation about capital construction funding for projects that the legislators are fielding requests for. And so we're working through that process. And the two main projects that we have to consider are airport improvements and also Clear Lake Road infrastructure for economic development, industrial project.
Councilor Evans has a question. I do too.
Yeah, I noticed in the handouts the memo on Governor Kochek's economic development package. So Ethan, can you kind of give us some more information or some clarity on how that impacts the current developments that we are engaged in, both on Clear Lake and the investments that we have already made and we're going to be continuing to make in terms of private investments along Highway 99, and how does that interface with not only the governor's initiative around economic development, but also, and I know I'm asking a lot, but also the development of the corridor, economic development corridor between U of O and OSU.
Great question.
Which is right smack dab in the middle of my ward.
Great questions, Councilor Evans. I think that if I may if I try to repeat what I think I can respond to. One, and so the governor's economic development or the economic prosperity package, how does that relate to core projects that the city has been?
That we already have in the pipeline. And I think that would also include anything that would fall off the table for the airport as well.
Yeah, I can answer that question right now. I also have it in the queue for as we're working through. There's a bullet item under the second page economic development package that I was planning on having that conversation. Would you like me to talk about it right now? Or?
Yeah, well, if you could skip to that, that would be helpful, and then we can go back through the bulleted items as you have already laid them out. But I called that out because we really have to get moving on this. We
Yeah. Okay, I concur. And so if we skip to the second page, there's the fourth bullet economic development package. And so what was previous was this initiative has support from cities and industry proposes to enable industrial sites for advanced manufacturing, which would incorporate land use changes in the state statute, provide economic incentives such as a research and development tax credit, capital equipment, property tax exemption or deferral, and then an enhanced enterprise zone, and targeted regulatory reform, which would be permitting. So between the last time that we wrote this and now, I've been able to have more conversations with state officials. And what's occurred is that there was an economic development package that was being led from Hillsborough, Washington County, and Oregon Business Industry, and League of Oregon Cities, and some other entities, economic development agency associations. And that was kind of the overview there. There's three pieces of land use changes, economic incentives, and then regulatory. And since then, and at the business summit, which happened early in December, and Mayor attended and spoke, the governor released, her economic prosperity initiative, her vision. And then since then, it's gotten more and more detailed. So what you have is kind of hot off the press, her legislative concept, LC 109, and this is her economic development. This package has, and so there's been a bit of a bifurcation between the Washington County, Hillsborough, and OBI package, and then the governor's package. And there's been conversations to say, okay, what's going to be put into LC 109, the governor's package, and what's going to still be in this other bill that'll get moved forward. So the other bill will likely have the land use changes in it, and then potentially some of the other economic incentives like the R&D tax credit. The governor's package is going to have this fast track permitting, which applies to state agencies only. It doesn't touch on local government implementation of our processes. The permit audit and refunds, additionally, that's for state agencies and the permitting process that they go through and their timelines. On the second page, industrial site readiness, which is where we fit in. I'll come back to that in just a second. And then this enterprise zone modernization. And this is an opt-in, so it will be at the state, potentially updates to state statute related to enterprise zones, but those are all opt-in at the local level. And so once again, the council will be able to review those and then choose what to adopt into local code. Much of what some of they're talking about, we'll get into that in just a second. So, trying to keep this as streamlined and as clear as possible as we move through this. During some of my conversations, specifically with the governor's economic advisor, who many of you may know, Sarah Means, who used to work for Lane County and for OB, and was a regional solutions contact through the pandemic. She is now an advisor to the governor. we sat and caught up and chatted, and I said, we would really love to be able to provide testimony in support of the industrial site readiness funds and tell our story related to Clear Lake Road and the investments that we're making, and really try to add some energy behind that, and also keep that project as a forefront in legislators' minds. Sarah really liked that. I think she discussed that with other key members in the governor's office. And we are now on the 13th scheduled for the mayor to join the hearing before the, have it here, the House Interim Committee on Economic Development, Small Business and Trade. And the adopted Eugene priorities, including Clear Lake Road infrastructure for industrial development and Eugene Airport improvements. I'm in the process of writing draft testimony for the mayor that also incorporates in the adjacent regional economic investments that we're making into the Eugene Airport and the impact that has on our regional economy. And then additionally, adding information related to the South Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor. Council has not taken a formal position on that. And so I'm navigating how the mayor will be speaking about that in a manner of to be really clear about here's what the speaking on behalf of the city of Eugene related to council priorities, and then also what are some other economic development initiatives that are happening in our region that tie together this. So this is why we're kind of moving in parallel tracks related to the IGR materials coming to council, having opportunities to tell our story so that we get kind of our story out in front with legislators, which in the end will hopefully help us bring additional financial resources to the community. Does that help?
It helps. So in addition to what you just said, we don't have clear policy direction from council at this point on those industrial development and other pieces that we're talking about. However, we have previous council actions that we have made in that direction that I would say suggests a direction for where we're going, which would align with what's in this document.
Councilor Evans, I may have misspoken. I believe that we have very clear direction from council related to the Clear Lake Road and how that relates to industrial site readiness and having the state put more money into that we can access. So we will be 100% supportive, and that's what the mayor's comments will be focused in on. We're also taking this opportunity to incorporate in a short statement about the airport, which council has supported, and then a short statement about Southern Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor, which will be neutral in terms of policy advocacy. Just so
because that's emerging, and we haven't had that discussion yet. However, I think that all of these pieces align well for us, for you to make, the statement that, I think that we are, I don't think that you would have any opposition from anybody on council with this, would be, that we're fully supportive of the economic development efforts on the state level, and we want to make sure that we are aligned with the governor's efforts to move forward based on, past actions that this council has already taken in that direction, whether it's Clear Lake or anything else that we have done in terms of economic development and promotion in that area.
I have a question along those lines. Something you said caught my attention, saying the Portland metro area is they're kind of coalescing around what they're going to do, my words, in more of a region. Do we need to be concerned about that? Because it seems like whenever the Portland metro area gets involved, the state stops listening to anybody else.
Councilor Groves, I may have again misspoken. It was Washington County and Hillsborough, which
Oh.
are part of the western flank of the metro area. And for their specific leadership in this area is a lot to do with their critical need for industrial lands to be incorporated into their UGB.
Got it.
And because they are part of the metro land use system, it's much different than it is in all other parts of the state. And so they're seeking that regulatory relief related to land use. And so they're pushing this, but they're trying to create a coalition that would have benefit to others outside of the metro area. That for us, for instance, the land use, having land availability and expanding a UGB is not a priority for us, but the other elements related to the R&D tax credit, capital equipment, property tax exemption deferral, and this enhanced enterprise zone, those items could have benefit to our area, especially if we're able to be able to incorporate in language that highlights areas like Clear Lake Road industrial site, and also initiatives like the innovation corridor and the businesses and the efforts related to that, trying to leverage those available tools to be in the language so that we can actually kind of have a step up in any competitive process that would then go through the state agency.
Okay, that helps. Thank you. Another question. I'm also hearing that lottery dollars are down. Is that going to create any issues with some of our existing funding?
My understanding is that while lottery dollars the forecast, they may be down right now, the forecasts for the bond sale for 2027 and the amount of money that the legislature authorized to be for projects to meet that bond sale amount has not changed.
Okay.
So until that gets changed, it will still, the amount that was allocated in the 2025 session is still what we're expecting to be approved and sold in 2027. That then those receipts would those funds would come to the city.
Is that something we need to wait till we have money in hand before we start an RFP process?
I know that for the Clear Lake Road in the infrastructure project, we do have funds, local funds available, and we are Public Works Engineering has started the design RFP and has put that on out, or is planning to put that out currently.
Okay.
And so that would be for the wastewater conveyance system, the project that we put forward for legislative.
Okay. Thank you.
I think Mayor had a question.
Oh,
I just wanted to just wanted to add one connective comment, which is that as we're thinking about the development of the Clear Lake Road area and infrastructure investments and the partnerships that we will need to see, the types of development that are planned for that area, that fits into the vision of the Southern Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor. So those 650 acres being a component of what is imagined as some of the space that we need to be able to meet our manufacturing and commercial needs, to be able to have spaces for new businesses to grow in this community. They're not separate entities, so to speak, and in terms of the communication to our partners at the state level, the importance of investment in infrastructure to make these areas ready for that investment with our partners in the private sector is the same crux in a lot of that conversation. So there's a lot more work in those partnerships to do over time, but looking into these coming years, continuing to build support for infrastructure investments in Clear Lake Road is a core part of seeing that corridor project come to life.
So Mayor, along those same lines, I had a couple of questions. One is the framework for doing this is a lot different in Portland Metro and in Washington County than it is here, because you've got the additional layer in terms of land use of Metro up there as opposed to us down here. Do we need to, or have we thought that this far ahead, in terms of formalizing the Southern Willamette Valley corridor, either as an entity or as a vehicle for doing collaborative work with the surrounding counties, with Lynn, Benton, Lane County, and us to be able to maximize those kind of investments in infrastructure development and other pieces that need to happen in order to realize the end goal, which is, you know, a robust economic development corridor, Highway 99, between OSU and U of O.
I think the work you're describing is work that's on deck for 2026. If I were, reading a crystal ball
Right.
clearly, because the formalizing of an entity and partnerships across different jurisdictions, cities, counties with institutional partners, the precedent reference points for this work, and one that's come up repeatedly is the research triangle in North Carolina. And the specific structure of that is, born out of mid-20th century partnerships and collaboration, but is a point of reference when thinking about how decision-making structures can be put in place that allows for the kind of ongoing partnership and collaboration needed to be able to drive this sort of partnership through not just years, but decades of progress. What that looks like. So the North Carolina Research Triangle is the closest reference point. I'm a part of an advisory committee that gets together locally to talk about this work, and there's a steering committee that's also gathering as a part of the Southern Willamette Valley initiative that's related to OBI's work. And I think that everything you're describing is, likely in these coming months and year or 18 months, because we want to see the different actions we're taking remain connected. And as we start to see actions happen in these places, having a structure that allows them to be connected and coherent, before everything starts, that's a benefit to us, I think. So I don't have an answer for you, but I think that's the work that's on deck for this year.
So is Mayor Pace in Hillsborough kind of modeling the lead for where your role would be in this?
Mayor Pace in Hillsborough is not a part of Southern Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor.
No, I know that.
Okay.
I'm talking about in terms of modeling what's going on in Washington County and Hillsborough, and then replicating that.
I've not heard that in
Valley.
conversation, but it doesn't mean that others haven't discussed it. But I've not heard Washington County as a reference point for the Southern Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor. It's the precedent reference that has been most useful in this work is North Carolina.
Okay.
Good. Back to page 1.
Back to the future.
So we've gone through the second bullet down here to the third bullet, support increased protections related to threats to public officials. So still Senator Brzezinski has agreed to include the negotiated -5 amendment to Senate Bill 473 that we had at the end of last session into his public safety omnibus, and that'll be introduced to the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I've got a call with him on Monday to just kind of touch base on that and see if we're still moving forward with that. But he had agreed to that, and so we're. Fourth bullet, support state and federal financial support for Eugene Airport expansion, currently evaluating opportunities and priorities for capital construction funding. And so this is, we have right now, the legislature has said that they will have a capital construction process, which will include some lottery bond funding and other types of capital bonds that the state manages, that they did not allocate all of the available funds for the biennium. And so they kept some tight. There's current discussions about what that number is, and there's different forces within the legislature that are trying to put a cap on it and keep it lower because of all of the other budgetary concerns that are happening. So that process is unfolding. What we do know is that for this short session, the Capital Construction Committee subcommittee of the Ways and Means, full Ways and Means Committee, will only evaluate projects that are sponsored by a legislator. And legislators only have two projects that they can put forward. So they're limited. And so right now, I'm reaching out to both of those are in both of the projects that we've identified as potential for that airport and also the Clear Lake Road project are within Speaker Fahey's district and Senator Manning's district. So I have reached out to Senator Manning. I've got a meeting set up with him for next week. And I've also reached out and I've got a meeting with the speaker's staff next week to talk about some of this stuff as well. So we're trying to get and then internally we're having the discussion related to the use of these funds, how best to prioritize that and come up with a recommendation of how to move forward on that. It would either be Clear Lake Road or airport improvements that we put forward. So on the federal side, though, we're also having a conversation. We've had a lot of internal conversations related to the earmark process and at the federal level, congressionally directed spending. And because of some of the activities which you've been briefed on confidentially or through attorney-client privilege related to federal funding, we believe that more than likely the airport is going to be the highest priority for the city and the one that will carry the least risk related to running into potential roadblocks with federal contract terms. So that will come on up. We're working through that process right now. But those are the ones that we're highlighting right now. And unless there's a fatal flaw through through our internal analysis, those are probably moving forward on fifth bullet, support increased state investment in behavioral health systems. Again, continuing to work with Lane County. They're continuing to try to shore up support for some of their court programs at the circuit court level and some of their mental health programs. And so we would just kind of throw a shoulder behind that. Nothing that we would be specifically leading on at all, but just in concert with where Lane County's support is needed. And then the last bullet from our priorities is support statewide property tax reform. And this is basically to engage with Representative Nathanson as she implements the task force that's identified in House Bill 2321 from the 25 session. And there's likely no opportunities for property tax reform discussions during the short session. So after that, Representative Nathanson is going to be moving forward with her task force on the impacts of 5 and 50 to local revenues. And so we want to participate in that. And then additionally, League of Oregon Cities has been talking about having a revenue reform subcommittee that's been operating, and former city manager Sarah Maderi had sat on that. And when she retired, we asked to have interim city manager Matt Rodriguez sit on that to represent the city and also just be part of the conversation, statewide conversations with other cities related to revenue reform. And so those are post-session activities that will continue on, and having council directive to say, yes, keep working on that. Any questions before we move on to the legislative conference?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
I do. It's maybe a comment more than a question, Ethan. Thank you. I'm thinking about a conversation that Council President Evans and I just had earlier today with council leadership, and that as we are holding this priority of protecting our shelter program funding, I do think it's also important that the city of Eugene and our partners clearly convey the efficiency and the effectiveness of the shelter work that we have done locally. And I think that the reduction in funding that we've received for this work, we know it's creating real challenges in our community. And there's a lot of uncertainty related to what that will look like as we get further into 26 and 27. But my hope is that now that we have a statewide structure in place, we will be able to work towards a stable and fair per bed allocation that also I think our local work would be very well positioned to be successful in that kind of a competitive circumstance. So I recognize that all communities have challenges that this funding is a part of meeting, but I do also know that we have been incredibly efficient with the state of Oregon's money in meeting this part of our social safety nets needs, and we need more funding than we received last year. So, or that we're currently receiving with a reduced amount through this bill. So, I know protecting the funding is important, and we are of course committed to that. I think also we know that we will need more to continue to be successful in this work.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, I would just add on to that for clarity, the funding that came from OHCS shelter dollars went to Lane County, and we did a lot of work with Lane County and with the state to ameliorate some of those impacts, mitigate those impacts, and ultimately that decision to move forward with the smaller budget numbers this year was made. We hope that then in year 2 of the funding that there will be a plus up, that there might be an increase related to the distribution will change a bit. However, we do know that in the next biennium, the program, we were successful in getting the program set up at a state level and getting a ongoing line item budget. But that ongoing line item budget is going to be roughly a half the amount, so $100 million versus the $200 million for the biennium. And so into the next biennium, we know that there's going to be 50% less dollars allocated unless there's a lot of advocacy from cities and from community members and partners to increase that allocation to be the 200 or more. And during our advocacy efforts, we pegged that number at 225 with the recognition that that's not the full number to cover the cost of beds in the state operational at the time, or the beds needed in the state to meet the need of people requiring shelter. So I just want to kind of like say yes, and we will continue to see this as an issue that we're having to prioritize. On to the priority 1 legislative concepts, voluntary annexation. So again, I haven't gotten any language yet. I was hoping that we would get bill language sometime in the middle of this month. I received a communication from Representative Nathanson that said that we'll probably see bills on February 1st. The day before the session, and so next week is legislative days, 13th, 14th, 15th, and I'll just be in the building asking for where I can get the drafts of these bills so that we can get our staff expert eyes on them and understand what the implications are, so that we can evaluate how they align or don't align or conflict or are supported by the council adopted policy. So voluntary annexation, when we've discussed this in the past, again, recommended as a priority one, but we'll wait to figure out what the position is until House Bill 3115 repeal. There will likely be a bill. Again, we haven't seen the concept. I don't think it's going to move at all. It doesn't have a lot of legislative support on the Democratic caucus, which is the majority on both sides of both chambers and also in the governor's office. So there will be a bill. I don't expect it to move. Council took a position to oppose any repeal efforts. And so you took that last year, and I've been actively advocating to not have bills move forward that would be repealed or curtail their support. Just following through on council direction in that way. The next page, automatic license plate reader regulations. Again, this will likely be part of the Senate Judiciary Committee's Public Safety Omnibus, and it's being currently in a work group. Senator Przansky, I believe Chief Skinner, UPD Chief Skinner, has been involved in these conversations on a daily, if not or weekly, if not daily basis with the senator, but also with the executive director for the Association of Chiefs of Police. And so there's just a lot of work pulling that together. I expect to see more information next week on what those state policies will look like. But in initial conversations with Senator Przansky, his interest was to look at it from a contracting standpoint. The state sets the procurement standards, the public procurement standards, and then the city adopts those. And so it could be something that the state adopts a new procurement policy that has guidelines related to data storage and protection and sharing and authorization for these types of systems. We'll see what happens when we get closer and we have more information to share. And also, council will have, is it in mid-February? There is a scheduled work session to come back and discuss ALPR at the same time. So there will be kind of concurrent efforts happening, and one at the state and one at the council. So we'll hopefully be able to inform for that work session what's occurring at the state level and in play.
So Ethan, question. I'm trying to formulate this in my head. So does Senator Przansky's efforts at the state level preclude us from having, a more robust policy discussion about how APLR is used in our community? Or because one of the things we did when we made the pause on the usage of the cameras was say we wanted to come back and have a policy discussion on how the program was run, how the data was collected, who owned the data, how the data was going to be used, who we shared it with. All of those things were supposed to be policy discussions that we were going to have at the local level. So are we being preempted by this state conversation? Should we hold back? Or does it make sense for us to have concurrent discussions moving forward while the state is obviously moving in a direction to have a blanket bill or blanket policy that applies to all local jurisdictions across the state?
Councilor Evans, great questions. Again, I would say that council's policy, one of the clear directions that the IGR program implements is that we oppose any state preemption. Yeah. Unless council has said no.
Home rule is our backbone.
As Senator Przansky is working on this, what my initial read on these within experts in our organization that will look at this is to say, is this permissive? Does it allow local governments to choose to opt in? Does it allow us to choose component parts, or is it choose all or nothing, or any of those elements? So that's the first test that we take a look at. I know that I've shared those discussions with Senator Przansky. I know that the chief continues to be able to say, we need to have local control on these issues. Council's having ongoing conversations. You have not landed on here's what we want you to do. And so as this policy is being developed, more than likely, the next time that we have.
Speaking of which, Senator Brzezinski called me.
You mentioned.
Hey, Floyd.
There you go.
Who's on the line?
I can jump in. a
All
little
right,
bit. Yeah, Counselor Ye, if your understanding is different than mine, please speak up. But Counselor Ye and I sit on the police commission. And my understanding is Chief Skinner is what the state's doing is actually gonna do some of the work we would have to do anyway. So the research that they're doing and some of what they come out with, and remember, as a community, we can have more restrictive policies, laws, ordinances, but the state then sets the threshold that we have to meet. So I think this is actually a good thing that they're taking this on. I think there's enough communities that are kind of where we are, scratching their head trying to figure out, because it's great technology, but it can be abused. And for obvious reasons, we separated from flock safety. But it doesn't mean, despite what we hear in public comment periods, it does not mean that the ALPR type system is dead.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Councilor Ye, do you concur with what I said, or did you?
Yeah, that's the way it was presented to us at Police Commission, that his involvement and the role he saw as the benefits it could bring to us.
Thank you.
Well said.
And if I could just address his question about timing, we do have a date on the council agenda. If that needs to adjust based on the state conversations, we're able to take a look at that to make sure that the council conversation makes sense in terms of timing for where we're at with legislative development. So
thank you.
If council needs to weigh in on a position, we can take a look at when council will be able to do that. If the policy conversation makes more sense after the legislative session, we can take a look and work with mayor and city manager to adjust the timing so that it makes the most sense for you.
I think that's excellent. I think that's how we should approach this, rather than start working on it before the cake's ready to come out of the oven. So, and I know Chief Skinner and his staff are going to keep close tabs on this. So, Councilor Ye and I will, I'm sure, hear plenty about it in Police Commission. So. Oh, Mayor.
I wanted to hear what you had to say, Chair. I'm also thinking, Brooke and Ethan, that our staff and Chief Skinner, over the months of conversation when ALPR was active at City Council, there was a lot that our city learned about the contracting process with other entities. And in the event that there were a component to the legislature's work that specifically are addressing contracting guidance, if people are thinking about ALPR being contracted out work, I just wanted to offer my encouragement that we share all that we learned from those months of work. I'm already presuming that that would be happening through just the excellence of our staff, but in hearing from other mayors around the country, other communities grappling with similar challenges in terms of use of technology and engagement with entirely new arenas of work, that some of the things that we learned that were hard lessons are lessons that probably a lot of other cities in Oregon would have had to learn in an even harder, in a more difficult way, if not for the insight that we could offer. So I don't know how that fits into this puzzle, but there was a lot of work done to address the concerns that were brought forward to the council, even within the existing contracting agreement that we were trying to sort through. Of course, that did not move forward, and I think we're on a far better path into the future now, but we learned a lot through that. So
good.
Continuing on, so changes to the serial communications policies by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, OGEC. And so again, LOC is leading on that. Once the bill language is released, I'll be able to come back and say, here's where this sits and if and how it aligns with city policy. Revisions to the transient lodging tax, so there will be local government groups, including Lake County, are heading back with a reboot of HB 3962A from the 2025 session, and the language in there is basically allowing local governments to rebalance the use of TRT, TLT funds, and we've have a recommendation of support for that. It allows the local governments to have more flexible use over state revenues that are from that tax. Next bullet, economic development package. We spent a good amount of time chatting about that. Unless there's additional questions, we're going to keep moving forward. Autonomous vehicle regulatory concept, and so the AV company Waymo it'll be introduced in the House Transportation Committee, and in it, it currently, as written, preempts local government's ability to set standards, regulations, or fees, and so that is obviously a major red flag and preemption. And this has happened many times with passenger pay vehicles, and so we would be in opposition to that and work to amend the bill so that there would not be a preemption, but there would still be a statewide program that can move forward. Banning of speculative ticketing practices, and so this one we talked about last month. Recommended a priority one support. It would provide the city the ability to save revenue in terms of when patrons purchase tickets through a second retailer or second source, and those tickets may be fraud or anything else that we want to make sure that we're having a good customer support practice, and so we're able to not have the secondary marketplace malfunctions. The Oregon Battery Extended Producer Responsibility EPR bill, and so last year it was HB 2062 from 2025. Metro's leading this, and we've been supportive of this. It aligns with council's sustainability and waste management goals. And then the last one is an addition and regarding prevailing wage. And so Senator Anderson is a former Lincoln County mayor, and he's the co-chair of or co-vice chair of the Senate Housing Committee. And he's developing a bill that would update the state's prevailing wage program. We've been providing input on what the prevailing wage determinations have on Eugene projects, and we recommend that when this bill come on out that it's a priority one, a neutral provision. And once the bill is released, we would review and bring it to IGR for discussion and potential position, but also that we would make available data and information upon request to the committee related to the bill. It may have challenges related to political sensitivity, so we want to be monitor it, but also provide information on it. So
I actually have a request, suggestions for our chief of staff since you're here. Going back to the changes in serial communications, when that all shakes out and it's finalized, I think it would be really helpful if the city attorney's office could either provide a short training session or at least some type of comprehensive guide of what not to do so we don't run afoul of that. So I'm sure it's going to change the way it is. Well, it's already changed some, but it's going to change more. And my understanding is that individual elected officials can be held financially liable for running afoul of the law. And I think it would be good to help those of us who are not lawyers to understand what the requirements are, just to be above board for the public, but then also to protect ourselves.
Sure, happy to follow up on that.
Thank you.
that was it. for 3D.
All right, thank you. Anything you would like to share, Counselor Evans?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Senator
Cake in the oven.
Senators Brzezinski and I are trying to coordinate our schedules to talk about ALPR and which is again one of the bills that he's going to be pushing forward in this short session, and then our situation with municipal court vis-a-vis the
Yes.
House bill glitch that we've had that moves us in the direction of becoming a court of record, and
Yes.
you know the cost of that and other related issues around that. So what he told me was that as far as that is concerned, he's still having ongoing conversations with Judge Gill about that, and that, you know, I think the direction that we talked about at leadership meeting is probably the best direction for us to go in, and that's for us to become a court of record at this point. The other issues are the appellate process and how that goes through circuit court, and where that lands and how that lands is something that Floyd hasn't quite figured out yet, but he's been pretty having a number of robust conversations with Chief Skinner about ALPR and the usage around that. So
We
they're
talked about that
built-
quite a bit after you stepped
yeah,
out.
they're building sideboards around that. So I think that we're going to get direction from the state and legislature that is going to help us shape how we craft local policy around ALPR. And maybe I'm kind of thinking maybe we need to think about how we schedule that conversation, and maybe not schedule that before we see what happens at the Senate level and what comes out of the Senate, and then what ultimately comes out of legislature, because I'm thinking that what's going to happen is that there will be, from what Floyd just told me, there will be some kind of bill that will come out because this is an issue that the Chief of Police Association is, you know, really trying to, you know, dig their teeth into right now, so that we can not have the stuff that has gone on. That's, you know, has not been anybody's intent, but you know, the problems that have arisen behind ALPR that were unforeseen.
Thank you. I guess we're moving into item 4, items for committee members and good of the order. And I was actually going to raise the Muni Court situation. I think we should put that on our list of things, you know, if nothing else, just when you're up in Salem, running into other cities, see what they're doing about it. This is going to basically render all of our restorative justice programs virtually moot if people can just. Yes.
Only if this offers a kernel of hope. I will only offer, Chair, that in talking with Judge Gill just this past weekend, and more broadly about the trajectory of becoming a court of record locally. You know, we've learned a lot, I think, very quickly. A lot of people have learned a lot very quickly about the implications of this one section of a bill passed into law last year. But the, I think, good news being that and there's more to learn, certainly, but current impressions being that our the dockets that we have locally that allow us to be responsive to our community's needs, that we can continue with that work, that the complexity of moving to a court of record, maybe not quite as high and heavy as a bar as was figured even just a month ago. And I think we'll learn a lot more about this from from staff in probably the next couple of weeks. But
That would be great. I had a fairly good conversation with Judge Gill, but it was earlier last month. And at that point, it was just, oh my God, we got to get all these recording systems and
I really
2 more staff people. And I'm just going, whoa, wait a minute.
I really appreciate you mentioning that piece, because this is also an area of our community's work that is, there are a lot of different proper nouns involved, and it's challenging to track in a public conversation. But in the most recent conversation I had with Judge Gill, he, I'm sure he would be the first to say there's more to learn and we have work to do, still to close this chapter, but it's seeming quite positive that our specialty dockets, that would not be as implicated by this change as maybe originally we were concerned
Okay,
about, which is
good.
good news for drug court and others that
Yes.
have been very effective.
Very effective. And all it's going to do is just jam up process in circuit court. And the cases are never going to get there because they're going to drop them because they have higher priority cases going on. Ethan, do you need a motion passed by the?
Brooke's got something.
I'll just add, you can expect this week some additional information from the city attorney's office if
Okay.
it's not already in your inbox. So that will give you a little bit more clarity on potential direction and more information about some of the concerns that were raised.
Okay.
So I would maybe offer that you wait for that information to come
Right.
into you all, and then if action is needed or additional discussion needs to be scheduled, we can work with you on that. But that additional information should clear up some of the concerns and maybe set a course for you all to consider.
I appreciate that. I'm just concerned that we're getting ready to start the short session and
Yeah.
Ethan's going to be up there. And I think it's important that
Well,
you know about this. And
yeah, so
Keep our ear to
thank
the ground.
you, to Groves and Mayor and Councilor Evans for all of that, and Brooke, appreciating the communication that you'll get from City Attorney's Office. It's the way that I'm putting it in my mind. Judge Gill and I had a long conversation prior to, he and I talked a few different times prior to the holiday. And then we were able to talk with Senator Brzezinski directly and walk through a lot of the moving pieces on this. And the senator had offered to say, okay, well, he saw that there was an issue that would be impactful statewide. And so he said, I want to start working on a potential legislative fix for this issue. And meanwhile, we're also having internal conversations about what the administrative aspects of becoming a court of record and what the council discussions would need to be. So it's those two things can move together simultaneously. And the right now, we don't need, I don't believe that we need to take a position on anything. Like IGR doesn't need to do anything and council doesn't need to do anything related to any of the legislation that Senator Brzezinski might be bringing together into this omnibus. Mm-hmm. If at a certain point we get to down the road where we need to, we will bring that back and it will be a comprehensive conversation with the interim city manager, the city attorney, council leadership, and so that there's a lot of, and obviously Judge Gill and Mia Carriaga, executive director for Central Services, which oversees the administration of the court apparatus. So it's a lot of kind of people conversing, figuring out how do we need to move on this and make sure that we're covering the risks and the liabilities that we may see, but also doing that in a manner that's most appropriate for the
Okay, great. That makes me feel a lot better. Plus, knowing that Mia and Christy Hammett both have been past court administrators, I think that helps as well. I just heard enough from Judge Gill that my hair stood up on the back of my neck, and it made me very concerned. So thank you for that.
And, like I said, I talked to Judge Gill this weekend, and it looked like we have a path forward. But there are other pieces based on my conversation I just had with Senator Brzezinski that need to, come to fruition, before we make any final decisions about the direction that we're going in. But I think we've got a path forward with becoming a court of record. The devil's in the details.
Well, just when I had my conversation, it sounded more onerous than where it sounds now. So I'm grateful for that. And
Exactly same.
Good news.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was just gonna, anyway. Is there anything else to come before the good of the IGR?
I just have one, flying up to, say, 60,000 feet and thinking of how busy that you will be shortly with the short session, Ethan, and I know you already are. Thank you for all of that work. The economic development package and the different sort of strands of energy and interests. My understanding is that will likely be a focus of the short session in terms of attention, in terms of public communication, lawmakers' attention. Is there anything else that if you were wanting for our community to understand, like this is what the meat of the short session is about in 2026 in the state of Oregon? What would you want to be sure that we are effectively communicating as we talk with any from 150 to 1,000 people on any given week?
Thanks, Mayor. I think that I'll answer in two different ways. One is that related to the city of Eugene as an organization and the work that we do, I would say the economic prosperity efforts are likely number one. The second will be then the public safety omnibus elements that would have, because those will incorporate conversations that have been coming to the council related to discussions. I think those are going to be two really big things. I believe that there's going to be then outside of the city, right? So just what the legislature is going to be focusing on. They have a budget gap. Once the forecast comes on out, the next forecast, that gap may be smaller, but they've been asked to reduce programs and cut programs, cut staff and services. What that looks like, and then the legislature has to balance the budget that they're in right now. And so that will be a discussion. As you know, so there's that. What that also means is that there's impacts from loss of federal funds and changes in federal programs related to healthcare, related to SNAP benefits, that the state government is going to be struggling to fix. Additionally, with that change, there's going to be a lot of people coming off of OHP and or a lot of people who have been doing private pay who will not be able to have a tax benefit from private pay insurance. And so the state's going to be struggling and trying to take on, how do we keep people insured and have health benefits and health care? And then just recently I read that the Portland Trailblazers are going to be coming forward with a large $800 million, $600 million, multi-million-dollar bond request from the state to renovate the Moda Center, and that there would be a reallocation of professional sport basketball players and other associated employees, take that tax revenue, and then that would be the revenue to pay off the bond. And so that's coming. It's just they're going to bring that forward during the short session with a lot of leverage. And so I think that I share that because those are really, really big, thorny, almost unsolvable issues in 35 days. Yeah. And you also have a lot of the politics that have been seen at the national level will play out at some level at the state level in terms of the two caucuses, the Republicans and the Democrats. And so I think that what we have for us, we've got a very tight agenda. It's pretty aggressive, but I think we're positioned to be successful in what we're asking for. And in the meantime, the state is just, I think that the takeaway is the state agencies, the governor, and the legislature are dealing with really big problems. And then the one that I totally forgot is that with the repeal or the referendum of the transportation tax, that the state has to come up with a hundreds of millions of dollars for ODOT in this biennium. And if they can't figure that on out, then there will be service cuts and layoffs that will impact statewide. And also with that referendum, 50% of the tax revenue was going to be going to counties and local governments and cities, and that money we are forecasting that we could get that money for transportation maintenance. And if we don't get that state money, then we will need to, at the city level, have to reduce services, reduce projects, or come up with other revenue sources to. So all of that, that's a direct impact, but then it has impacts. Right now, we're pulling out a reserve to keep those budgets stable, but that's not going to last for a few years.
So 2 questions on that, Ethan. Does it look like the legislature will probably, pull back the transportation bill in the session?
I'm sorry.
Well, the governor rammed it through and passed it, and it got
It's on the ballot.
I know that they got the signatures to put it on the ballot, but I'm saying, are they going to pull it down and, to avoid having the election?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
That's a question there. And with the Blazers, it's a threat. If they don't get what they need for the renovations to the Moda Center, are they going to threaten to move the Blazers like to Seattle?
I'm not part of those conversations. I don't know, but that's.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just saying because I know it's what they've done in my hometown in Cleveland, that they're going to build a new dome stadium, but they're going to build it in the suburbs instead of downtown Cleveland, and that's causing a whole lot of heartburn back there, because it's like, you're taking resources out of downtown Cleveland and you're putting them in a Brook Park, and it's like people are like, are you kidding us? Really? So, it's the same kind of thing that happened 30 years ago when they took the Browns out of Cleveland to Baltimore overnight and said, oh, you're going to give us a new stadium in Baltimore? That's where we're going. So, I mean, it's one of those things, they're going to hold us hostage. And the same thing with the M's.
Don't let him bring up the Dodgers. We'll never end this meeting.
Forget about
There's
it.
gotta be a book written. There's several.
I think we're ready to adjourn.
Okay.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.